The Roots of Success podcast is for the landscape professional who's looking to up their game. We're not talking lawns or grass here. We're talking about people, process, and profits. The things deep within the business that need focus to scale a successful company. From hiring the right people and managing your team to improving your operations and mastering your finances, we've got a brain trust of experts to help you nurture the roots of a successful business and grow to the next level. This is the Roots of Success.
Welcome back to the Roots of Success podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Cole with McFarland and Stanford. We've got an awesome guest today. We're talking to John Dalton, Chief Marketing Officer of McFarland Stanford. He leads the entire marketing team, everything from social media to content to branding, strategy, everything under the sun marketing-wise. He's got a wealth of experience in corporate as well as our favorite small business entities. And he has a ton of stuff to share. It's going to be a great conversation. So let's jump right into it. Welcome, John.
Happy to be here, Tommy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, so as we are, talking about marketing things, I think everyone wants to know, who is John Dalton and where did he come from? So give us a little bit of background, what you've been involved in prior to McFarland, and that'll set the stage as we move into this.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I've got about a 25-year history in marketing, starting in the advertising agency world. Then I got my MBA from SMU, just across the street from you, Tommy.
Yeah.
That's where I met a man by the name of Jim Callai, and he and I worked together for several years at Kinko's, and then lived through the merger with FedEx. So we did a lot of things with international marketing, and that was my big introduction to very high level branding with FedEx and converting over stores all over the world. Fantastic experience. I went on to work for some other large companies there in Dallas, Brinker International, which is a restaurant company. Did international marketing with them for several years, and then got out of the corporate world and became a small business owner, like a lot of our listeners. My wife and I run a couple of companies over the years. One we successfully grew to 7 figures, ended up selling that business. So I have a lot of big corporate marketing experience, like you mentioned, and then I've also been a small business owner. So I have a pretty well-rounded view of marketing with the big boys to, how you do it on a shoestring. So that's kind of my experience in a nutshell. And wound up back here working with Jim, right? Working with all of you guys. It's been a really great partnership, and I love the industry. So happy to be here.
That's great. Man, FedEx Kinko's is like a common name now. We used to call it FedEx, and then we used to call it just Kinko's. That is huge. Two massive conglomerates coming together across the country and the world, right? Like, what was so fascinating about getting everybody on board into a whole branding exercise that we're taking Kinko copies, immersion it into like the mail delivery system. What was challenging and rewarding about that?
Well, the biggest challenge, honestly, was Kinko's had basically no brand standards. They had a logo and you could do whatever you wanted with it. So we had international franchisees that would use the same logo, but everything else would be different, right? The structure of the website, what they used to promote it. And they were used to doing anything that they wanted to do. FedEx, on the other hand, is extremely strict, and they have very rigorous brand standards, which I definitely appreciate. So the hardest thing was converting people over to having no guidelines and boundaries to having very strict boundaries, and trying to teach them the benefits of having those boundaries. It actually makes your job easier as a marketing person. And even as a designer, you're able to focus more on the important things of being creative and less about just the overall design, because a lot of that stuff's already baked in for you. So I had to give a lot of training presentations, even with interpreters, like in Japan, for example. That was pretty challenging, trying to get those guidelines and all those ideas across to sometimes a not very willing audience.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they all came to appreciate why FedEx does what they do, because it really, whether you look at a FedEx truck, a website, a uniform, the inside of a store, it all looks the same. And that's really the point, is that clarity and consistency. So it's a really good experience for me coming from something with no guidelines to something with very strict and very well put together guidelines. So it was kind of a master class in branding that I got dumped into for 18
Yeah.
solid months.
Yeah, that's great. And that's like our audience, right? I feel like there's a mix. It's probably a little loose in our marketing to small business, right? I feel like
Yeah.
we tendency to sort of put that to the side and I'll work with it eventually and hopefully it all works out, right? I feel like that's most small business owners at this point. So this is setting up pretty well. As we're approaching and we're getting into a whole new year, right? This is like very accommodating to talk about just marketing for the 2024 season. But you've got several tips that you want to share. There's tips that you want to share for all small businesses that need to be doing for next year. So let's go through that. Let's start with number one.
Well, the first thing is, especially for small business owners, I encourage you to have a marketing budget.
Okay.
I think most small businesses that I talk to, they're trying to do it on a shoestring. And a lot of times they don't have a dedicated budget to what they want to spend, on a monthly or annual basis. So they're just kind of trying things out, flying by the seat of their pants. And anytime you don't have a plan or a budget, you're usually going to spend too much. So
Okay.
start small, but start with a number. Start somewhere. I think having a plan with anything is always the best place to start
Yeah.
so that you at least have some guardrails.
Okay.
It sounds simple, but I would say definitely for a small business, well over 50% have no budget at all. They're just
Yeah.
kind of, writing checks. And that's
Yeah.
not a good approach.
Yeah. So a budget is good. It's probably no different than, especially going in the new year, you should be setting your budgets for that year, right? It's very similar to what's the budget for small tools and equipment in your business? What's the budget for the crews, the budget for new trucks or trailers and all of that? What's your labor budget? What's your materials budget? Everything should be planned out. And oh, by the way, you have to do marketing, right? You can't just
Yeah.
do nothing. So have a budget. There's a line item in most softwares today. You are being challenged to fill in that marketing line item and put something in there. So
Yeah.
within this budget, what should companies be spending?
We talk about this a lot, mainly from a sales perspective. And I like that you guys start very conservative.
Okay.
I know Chris Pensick just gave a webinar last week where he talked about 1% of your total revenue is a marketing budget. As a marketing person, I think that's pretty low and conservative, but I think it's always a good idea for everybody to start pretty conservative when it comes to marketing because it's easy to get pulled in and spend money on things you don't need. So I think if you're in that 1 to 3% range,
Right.
especially if you're an existing business, that you're kind of more in a maintain cycle, I think that's good. If you're trying to really grow or expand, whether that's you're going into like trees and fertilization or even Christmas decor kind of line of business, you might need to spend a little bit more, like 3 to 5%. But I would keep it conservative. And then, the next thing I would do is as you see things that you're doing start to work, that's where you want to spend more money, right? Start small, figure out what works, and then you can slowly move budget over to those things that are really having an impact.
So how do you know what works? Is it because of feedback? Is it because you're getting sales or calls or leads? What's the trigger there?
Yeah, it's having some tracking metrics in place and then asking questions, honestly,
Okay.
right? Especially when you get new customers, you should be asking them, whether that's in a follow up survey or even face to face, how they found out about you.
Yes.
And that's the most important feedback you'll get is what was the marketing tactic that led them to giving you guys a call, right?
Yeah.
You have to get that information. The other thing that's good to do is when you send out, say, postcards or some kind of door hangers or something, have an offer on there with a specific code so that people have to give that to you so you know exactly which piece of marketing that lead came from. It
Yeah.
was about setting up some of the tracking up front. And then honestly, the best thing is just asking questions.
Yeah, I think that's really good. Asking the question, how did you find out about us? Where was it? Oh, a friend. Okay, a friend referred you. Check the box. Or I saw your truck. Okay, check the box. Take that information and put it somewhere where there's what and who owns that marketing, right? You have statistics and facts based, and so you know what
Right.
to do there, right? Okay, got it. So first was budget, right?
Mhm.
Second is what?
Second one is Stay away from shiny objects. And I think with marketing, that's really easy to get sucked into. The biggest ones right now, are social media, AI, anything that's like hot in the news. That's what you want to be careful of. That doesn't mean they're bad, but if you're getting a lot of cold pitches in your email box about, hey, we do these integrative social media plans for you, hire this marketing social media manager or, use AI to write all of your content. Anything that sounds too good to be true, just like anything else in marketing, it's the same. It usually is too good to be true. So don't fall victim to those kinds of things and realize, we talk a lot about sales and landscaping. It's not what it used to be, right? After COVID, things were just kind of falling in your lap. Now you have to work for it. And everybody who's selling marketing solutions is in the same boat. So they're out there, they're trying everything they can to sell you stuff, right? So just be careful of that stuff and focus on what works. Social media in particular, I think is one of the worst because it's such a time suck, you know?
Yeah.
You're like, "Oh, I have to post 3, 4 times a week," and social media is a good way to have relationships with your existing customers and show personality, but honestly, it's terrible at generating new leads. That is not a really good channel for you to bring in new business. You'll get some, but if you start tracking it, you'll see that it is not a primary driver. So, it's really about figuring out what are those key things like we talked about with tracking and budget and making sure that you're spending most of your time there and not getting sucked into the latest and greatest social media tactics or AI content driven whatever.
So stay away from shiny objects. Landscape business owners love shiny objects. Like we're on to the next as business owners. We're like,
Yep.
ooh, I heard someone, I saw this, right? So let's answer. This is probably an elephant in the room that I get a lot from just people and travels is what is right for social media posts? Is it different based on the company, different based on the market, different based on the services? Or is consistency the issue that most people struggle with? Is that what you're leaning towards?
Yeah, I mean, your content should be driven by your customer, right? So
Okay.
if you're primarily a residential, it's going to be a lot about it's going to be a lot of pictures of their work, right? It's going to of pictures of people's houses and the projects that you did for them to kind of showcase some of those folks. Some of it's going to be it's a good opportunity for you to feature your team, some of the internal events just to show that you guys are human beings. And then if you're more commercial, it can be a little bit more news driven. You know, it's really about understanding who your customer is and what kind of information they're interested in
Mhm.
and just getting that out. Consistency is a huge thing, and I think it's just as important for you in planning as it is for your customer. People's brains are programmed to recognize patterns, right? So
Oh,
you if you're going to post twice a week, post on the same day at the same time, right? Because people will start to look for your posts subconsciously, right? And that also
mhm.
helps you because you know in planning that you have a post at 2 p.m. on Tuesday and one at 2 p.m. on Thursday, let's say. I mean, you can just build that into your week, so you're not just shooting from the hip all the time.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm a firm believer in that. To paint a little bit of a picture. I talk about training all the time and how important training is, but
Mhm.
oftentimes as business owners, we look at training as well. That's a rainy day thing, or when I get time in the winter, I'm going to focus on training. And those are all wrong answers. The answer is it's consistent training every single week of the entire year whether it's raining, snowing, or it's perfect outside. So you would have to agree, I guess, is no different than marketing, right? It's not when you want to do a post because you felt the need or you got some cool project. How about
Mhm.
every Monday and Thursday consistently? It's on the calendar that it just gets done every single week. And by the time that happens, you have over 100 posts in that given year. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and that's I mean, that's how anybody does it, whether we're talking about a huge corporation like Apple or any small business. It's all about having that plan, especially with the content because it can be such a time suck. If you know when those posts are gonna happen, or that you're gonna send out an email twice a month, or you're gonna put up a blog every other month, just write that down into your plan and it won't seem so daunting because it'll just naturally kind of cycle into all the other work that you're doing. And that's honestly the best way to do it.
Yeah. Cool. I want to hit on one more subject with that before we move to the
Mhm.
third. Who should be doing this? Is it the owner, or is it a person, or what's your suggestion on that? I think a lot of times where I'm going is we overthink this. Once and
Mhm.
again, landscapers overthink everything, right? Well, the angle's not right. Well, the camera's not perfect. But like sometimes you just have to do it, right? You just have to be
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm not going to be perfect at this, but I've got to start somewhere. So, what do you
Mhm.
recommend for someone's like, okay, I've done nothing, or I'm inconsistent and I need to figure out a way to do that? And not oftentimes is your office manager the perfect person for that, right? Because office
Yeah.
managers are different. They're different than construction and maintenance, etc. So what do you recommend for those companies out there that like need to get something going?
That's not an easy answer, but usually what I find works, especially if you don't have a marketing person in your office, you have a lot of people wearing a lot of different hats, is see if there's somebody in the office that is actually
Mm,
interested in doing it, right? Because
good point.
if you're not having fun doing social media, it's going to show, right? People are going to see that it's kind of stale and not very exciting. So you want to try to find somebody who is at least interested in it.
Yeah.
You know, if you have that plan and you can at least try to map out a month in advance of what those posts are going to be about, so that then you can write just some fun captions, go out and get some photos, of the
Hmm.
team, some of the jobs. It's all about thinking ahead of time and being prepared. Because if you're one of those guys that's like, shit, nobody's doing my social media. I need a picture. I need to put it up today. The post content is going to be not great. The caption
Right.
you write is going to be a little bit tense because that's what you are. So find that person in your office who has an interest in it and empower them to take the reins. There's a lot of different calendar systems you can use, even just an Excel spreadsheet to just plan out a month at a time. Honestly, I think that's the best way to approach it. It's much better to do that to start there than
Hmm.
try to go out and hire some social media manager that you're going
Right.
to overpay for.
Right. I feel like all of your resources are within your desktop, right? I feel like everything's there. For one, you have all the work to show off, right? So let's just make up an example. Twice a year, spring, fall, let's get a photographer, right? Not
Mhm.
very expensive, and photograph 3 to 4 properties every spring and 2 to 3 or 4 every fall. Do you know what
Yep.
kind of content that is going to give you and ammunition to post? Like that's fun. But
Yeah.
also like if you're doing once a quarter barbecue or a Christmas party, like who's taking photos of that fun celebration?
Mhm.
So you're attracting what, new members and team members to be like, we're having fun, we're having a great time, but also capturing properties that we built and properties that we maintain along the way. And then all of a sudden you've got 100 photos to pick from any given
Mhm.
year. And then you just post. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the
Mhm.
day, people love to see your rawness of a landscape company. Like, you're doing installations, you're mowing grass, you're fertilizing. That that's an attractive part. So
Yeah.
that's my simplest version of to just get some content out there.
Yeah. No, no, I think those are good points, Tommy. The key to a good content plan is figuring out how to repurpose things and reuse them so that you're not always starting from scratch.
Yes.
And the tip you gave about the photographs, hiring a photographer to come out, shoot your location, shoot a bunch of your jobs from a bunch of different angles, that'll give you a year's worth of photography that you can use
Yeah.
in social media because you'll have hundreds of photos, like you said, and you can recrop those and reuse the same photo over and over. I know a lot of guys are either buying or renting a drone and getting some cool video of their projects, that
Mhm.
they can use on their website and also on social media. I think that's real valuable use of your time and money. A lot of people are afraid to spend money on a photographer, but it's incredibly worth it. They will figure out how to really feature your projects, best lighting during the day. Like they know how to do that.
Mhm.
And it's really a great investment. And you can even find, like I know where I live in Asheville, North Carolina, there's a really good community college trade school. You can find people who are taking photography classes. You can get for really, really cheap, very professional looking work if your budget is really, really tight. But it's worth it. I would even have somebody come if you have a big Christmas party or a big summer barbecue to take pictures for you so that all your employees are included and that's not something you have to worry about during the event. Very low cost for something like that, a couple $100 and you'll get just months worth of content out of it.
At the end of the day, is being disciplined of hiring a photographer and get it done. And then you got all this content. So love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on, the third tip for 2024 is what?
Third tip, kind of building off the shiny objects from tip 2 is to just focus on the fundamentals. I know we talk a lot about branding to some of our clients, Tommy. I've got a
Mhm.
presentation I give to some of our peer groups. You know, focusing on the fundamentals, whether you're talking about sales or finance or marketing, is always the best place to start, right? So for me, when I start thinking about you as a landscaper, what is the number one thing that people see for the first time? If they're interacting with you and your company, what is it that they see first? 9 times out of 10, it's your truck driving around outside, right?
Mhm. Yep.
So that is their first impression, and you don't want to waste that. So
Mhm.
the simplest thing you can do is honestly keep your truck clean. A dirty truck just tells people what you're going to do to their property, and it's not the
Yes.
message you want to send.
Yes.
So keep it clean, whether that's your truck, your uniforms, your equipment, all of that communicates care and quality to customers. Then honestly, it makes your stuff last longer too. So operationally, it's a good thing to do. But it's very important. Your truck is probably your most valuable marketing asset that you own, but just because of the number of eyeballs that see it driving around every day.
Mhm.
So don't underestimate the importance of keeping that thing clean. I also talk to people about the branding on the truck and what does it say? What do you need on there? And really all you need is your name, something that indicates you do landscaping and a way for them to contact you. You don't need anything else. I call it the 100-yard test. Like walk 100 yards away from your truck and see if you can read those three things: your name,
Yes.
say landscaping, and is there a phone number or a website that's clearly visible? And that's all you need. You don't want to waste that. I think
Yeah.
that is vital. And that clear, kind of clean communication, whether we're talking about uniforms, trucks, also should apply to your website, to anything you send out. Just focus on the key pieces of information and don't try to stuff it full of a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that idea. The eyeball test is something that you brought up that's dear to me. And I use this term. I think when you did a presentation with one of our groups a little while back, I was impressed. And I used this analogy and I'm like, just paint yourself of sitting here on a road and you close your eyes and a truck drives by and you open and close and the
Mhm.
truck's gone. What did you see? And, a lot of times it's like, I couldn't read it, but it was something of like a tree or, right?
Mhm.
Or of what it was green, it, right? And you're like, that's, you want to be able to open it up. And I feel like, you know, companies like FedEx, like as you mentioned earlier, or Nike, right? Nike has gone through evolutions of changing their logo to one day now it's just check, right? Like it's so famous. But before it was the just do it and multiple versions along the way to where now it becomes very simple, clean line.
Mhm.
We tend to overdo our trucks and our equipment. Now, with our trucks and equipment, it also goes into proposals, right? Where we think we've got to put everything on a proposal, right? In our shirts, we got to advertise everything all over our shirts and in our offices, and it's just like, bleh, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying like keep it simple and clean, right? I mean,
Mhm.
take a white truck, for instance. A white truck stands out like just being plain white,
Mhm.
right? And so, what if you put that logo on the plain white truck and use the emphasis of the white truck? So, I love that example, right? I think we just overcomplicate of like, we also do stonework, we also do
Mhm.
pools, we also do maintenance, and you want to put it all in
Yep.
the package, right?
I remember in one of those presentations, I said this to one guy: your truck is not a website. You don't
Mm,
have to list everything you do. You don't need all kinds of taglines. You don't need multiple ways to contact you.
Yeah.
You don't need pictures. Keep it simple. Most people will see your truck for less than 8 seconds. If there's more information than they can take in 8 seconds, they will take in nothing.
Yeah.
So you're better
True.
off focusing on the three most important things and leaving the rest of it off.
Yeah.
And FedEx is a
Agreed.
great example. They have a massive logo on the side of their white truck and
Yeah.
FedEx.com. That is literally it. And there's a couple of things in the front, that they have to just like an identifier, the number of the truck. But as far as a customer is concerned, it's those two things.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who's listening to this can close their eyes and they know exactly what that truck looks like,
Hmm.
right? Because it's super clean. It's been consistent probably for the last 30 years. It's been the same design.
Yes.
So you don't even have to read it to know what that truck is. You
Right.
see it and you immediately know what it is. And
Right.
that's kind of the goal.
Yeah, and I know it sounds crazy, but have a clean
Mhm.
truck. Don't be that mechanic person, right? That's got the worst running truck, but fixes everybody else's truck, right? Because everyone out there are watching, right? There's all eyes are on you at the end of the day. And that is the one of the biggest marketing to have clean, clear trucks at the end of the day. I mean, equipment, trucks, all that. So love it. Review and referrals is part of your fundamentals. Explain that a little bit.
I think, especially, now that we're having to actively sell and go out and find work a lot more than we did the last couple years. Getting reviews and referrals is key. Your existing customers are one of your best resources.
Yeah.
So obviously you want to take care of them, but you always want to take advantage of asking them for who else might be interested in what you guys do.
Yeah.
Whether that's a commercial client or a residential, doesn't matter. You want to have a process to follow up with people and try to get some referral names from them, right?
Mhm.
And same thing with reviews. And I think this is especially important with a residential clients. You want to have those reviews of your work on Google, Yelp, some of those other places, because that is a huge social proof that's very important for you. If you have a bunch of 5-star reviews on Google, not only is Google going to put you closer to the top of the list, but you're much more likely to have people pick you if you've got tons of great reviews. And both of those are all about having a system. After the project is done, follow up it with the customer, make sure that they're happy. And if there's something that needs to be addressed, you do that. And then at the end of that process, you ask them for a review, make it as easy as possible. Maybe it's a form that they fill out. And same with referrals. You want to make it as simple as possible. And if incentives are not a bad idea either. If you can give them some sort of incentive, whether that's some kind of a percentage off their next maintenance visit or whatever it is, they're much more likely to give you something. But really, the most important thing is you just have to ask for the reviews and ask for the referrals. And if your customers are happy, they're going to be happy to give them to you.
Yeah, 100%. We're in the service industry at the end of the day. I've had an experience personally with a HVAC company in the summer months of Dallas, Texas, that was 110
Mhm.
degrees, and we had an issue with the AC unit. And they were so great. They came out here quick, understood, very, very customer service friendly, who they were, gave me their cards, worked on it, got it up and running. And at the end of the day, both of them said, "Would you please leave a Google review? It means a lot to us." And I'm like, "Absolutely." They're like, "Make sure you name us our name. Like this is how we get our business. This is how we keep going." And I'm like, so impressive because it was part of their culture to instill in that. Now, does the client leave a review every single time? No, probably not. But what if your sales team and your operations team that is out there working every day was starting to have relationships with your clients of like, "Hey, we're doing a lot of good things. And oh, by the way, would you leave us a review?" What that means as people are looking up your business is just it's like the easy sell, right? The
Mhm.
referral is the easiest. You're already on site working for the client. You don't have to go get a new one, which is 10 times harder. So yeah, I love that. And actually put it on your estimates and proposals. Referrals is
Mhm.
our, invoicing, right? All of that. Same thing.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. If you have a couple hundred 5-star reviews on Google, you can put that on postcards, you can put that in
Yeah.
emails. any kind of prospecting activities you're doing, like sales presentations, everything. That means a lot to people, and that'll separate you from the competition if you have a lot of reviews. And to your point, Tommy, it's a good opportunity to follow up the customer and change them, that from a just a transactional kind of relationship to a real relationship, right?
Yeah.
You're developing that relationship with the customer when you're asking them, hey, did we complete the job to your satisfaction? And hey, if we did, please go to this link and give us
Mhm.
a review. That means a lot to us. So
Yes.
it's a great way to build that relationship and foster that, and to help you from a marketing perspective as well.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Okay, John. So as we recap here, a lot of great information. So number one, the 3 tips for 2024 as we're kicking off this year. One is have a budget. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, the budget word, right? Everyone's
Yeah.
scared of the budget and the money talk, but 1 to 3% is the conservative approach. The more aggressive approach is 3 to 5. But have a budget. You have a budget for small tools and equipment. You have a budget for everything else. Don't forget about marketing. Love it. Second one, stay away from shiny objects. Oh
Mhm.
man, this hits home so much. So stick to a plan. If you don't have one, get a plan. Stay consistent and disciplined about social media. That matters. And third, which is just focusing on the fundamentals, clean truck, clean logo, look for the referrals and the recommendations. To me, those are excellent tips. John, anything else to add for those people listening as they're kicking their new year off from a marketing standpoint?
Yeah, I think the main thing is, when I talk to people about branding and marketing, is it's really about what your customer needs, right? And if you're not sure what to do, or should I post on Instagram or Facebook, or should I send out postcards or emails? If you're not sure what your customer wants or how they like to be communicated with, ask them. Don't guess. You're much better off having a survey or talking to them the next time you're out at their place, and figure out how they consume information or how they want to be contacted.
Right.
They will appreciate that. And it helps you be more effective as a marketing person with your existing customers. And as you start to learn how those customers like to be communicated with, that helps you understand how to communicate with prospects, right?
Yes.
Because they're the same type of people. They're just not on your list yet, but they consume things and they communicate the same way that your existing customers do. So, learning from your customer and communicating to them the way they want to be communicated with is always the best way to go. Don't assume that you're smarter than your customer and that you know how to talk to them, because most of the time you're going to be wrong.
Yeah. Right. Love it. Love it. My last 2 cents for what it's worth is this. You know how in a budget of building a house or a facility or a commercial property, the last thing to go in is what? Landscape, right? And
Mhm.
what oftentimes gets cut the most? Landscape. Do not let your marketing budget be the last thing to be inserted in your budget. It should be up there at the front, because if you don't have marketing going on, you have nothing coming in. You're not showcasing your work, your employees, your brand. So don't forget about marketing. Put it in your 2024 budget and rock and roll. John, it's been a pleasure again. I think everyone's learned a few tricks of the trade to take them into the new year.
Pleasure to be here, Tommy. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time.